So as we finish out this chapter and we highlight some of these main ideas of democracy, we're going to hit on just a few of them briefly because we'll come back and talk about them throughout the year, but it's important for you to get familiar with them even from the very beginning. So these are principles of the United States democracy and how we have come to utilize them within our government. So we begin here looking at American democracy and the fundamental worth of every individual. We recognize that each person is worth something. Each person is worthwhile supporting and fighting for. Everybody has value and dignity. And sometimes the welfare of some individuals may be sacrificed for the common good. Now that's generally the exception rather than the rule, but occasionally you end up on the short end of the spectrum and you realize things are not going your way, but it's the way that a democracy is meant to go. We also believe in equality of all people. Generally, our democracy promotes the idea that everybody has equal opportunity and equal equality before the law. So everybody has the opportunity to be whatever they want to be. Everybody has the same rights before the law. Now, in practice, it does not always carry out that way. I may have wanted to become an astronaut. Maybe that was my goal and my dream. But ultimately, I didn't have the resources to be able to do that. But had I been able to come up with the resources, then the government's not going to stop me from becoming an astronaut unless, of course, I'm incompetent, which I don't think you'd want me flying an aircraft into space. With this, though, we try to avoid discriminating based on your race, color, religion, even your sexual preferences, all those type of things. But sometimes that goes to such an extreme that there's some reverse discrimination on others. And so it becomes a very touchy subject. But everybody should be able to be free to follow their own ambitions, their own dreams of what they want to accomplish in life. And so it's the government's job to make sure that people are not being discriminated against, but it becomes a very difficult job. It's important to understand here with this, it does not necessarily mean that everybody has equality of condition. And this is, again, a misunderstood concept where people think, well, everybody should be equal. Well, if that were truly the case, we'd be a communistic country. Or socialistic. And so it does not mean that everybody is going to have a sports car and a boat and a mansion with a pool and their own private chef. A built-in grill. Don't forget about that. Yeah. I'm telling you, someday I'm going to build that thing. I'm going to find a house that has the capability, has the space in the back porch or backyard, and I'm going to construct my own built-in grill. And I'm going to love it. Where, in my opinion, you've got like a sink with running water next to it. You've got some sort of countertop, cabinets below, and I'm picturing something made out of stone, and preferably it'd be next to a pool. But I'm also realistic, understanding that I teach in a school, so a pool is probably not in my future. The built-in grill, according to my wife, would probably not be in my future either. So, guy can dream though, right? When I retire, yeah. Guy can dream. Yeah, I will be sure to let you know. I'll have you over for burgers or something. Probably not the Krispy Kreme burger though. That one. Have I not? Did I tell you about that in Bible last year? Yeah. So, yeah. I went through this this phase a few years ago where I like making Krispy Kreme burgers. And you get the Krispy Kreme donut, you slice it in half, you grill the inside part of it. You can't grill the outside because it gets all sticky and nasty on your grill. But you just do it enough to toast and caramelize the edge of the sugar on the Krispy Kreme donut.
You roast a plain donut on over fire.
Well, yeah, that would be good too. So then you use that as the bun for your burger, and you add cheddar cheese and bacon, and it is one of the most calorific burgers you will ever enjoy, but it is amazing. I could eat those a little more freely when I was younger. Not quite so much anymore.
Good idea.
But getting back to the point here, equality of all persons does not mean that everybody's going to have the same stuff. We're not all going to get a free TV or a free car from our government. And it's not the government's responsibility to provide those things for us. And a lot of people misunderstand that. Then we have the idea of majority rule and minority rights. Majority rule tries to find a solution that fits the majority of people. And you're always going to find people in the minority. There's always going to be people that don't fall into that majority and that are not going to like the decisions that are made. And so that's why we have the minority rights aspect to it, where the majority listens to the side of the minority. And they take that into consideration. And at times, there has to be compromise to avoid anarchy and to avoid disruption in the government. And there are times where the majority does not have enough to carry over whatever rule or law is trying to be enacted. And so they have to make compromise to bring in some of the minority as well. And that's part of what makes our democracy work. So compromise is a key idea to that, giving the minority an opportunity to express their opinion. If we don't compromise, if we fail to recognize the needs of the minority, in that case, we are going to end up with tyranny. The majority will always make the decision without consulting or without listening to the values of the minority. And it's part of the reason why we're allowed to protest peacefully. Part of the reason why we are allowed to protest our government, but in an orderly and peaceful fashion. And that's often where we get ourselves into trouble, because people can't do it in an orderly or peaceful way. And then the fifth element of American democracy is individual freedom. So we all have certain freedoms. We all have certain rights that we can exercise, but those rights end when they begin to infringe on somebody else's rights. So we mentioned the shouting fire in a crowded theater or concert. That is where your freedom of speech ends. You cannot cause harm to other people or panic among other people just because you want to exercise your freedom and your rights. So there is some limitation to individual freedom. In the United States, we exercise our economy under a free enterprise system. Not all governments do this. Not all parts of the world follow this. So if we have political liberty, we in turn should have economic liberty, and it generally promotes that. So when we look at the idea of democracy, we are expressing our political liberties. When we use the term capitalism, we are expressing our economic liberty. And so as we look at the United States government and our way of life, we are a capitalistic economy. And so when most of us understand what our personal freedoms and liberties are in our democracy, we need to know that we have certain economic liberties as well. and those go together. So here are a few features. Help us understand what free enterprise, or you can use capitalism and free enterprise interchangeably. They essentially work together. One of the aspects of this, and a really important one, is private ownership of the means of production. So that means that individual people can own their own land. They can own a business. You can own a transport company to be able to transport goods from point A to point B. And the government's not going to insist on control or total regulation. Now, there might be some rules and laws that they put in there, but you have the freedom to be able to establish that as you see fit. And the demand for goods is fueled by the individual consumer. And those needs are going to be supplied by other individuals. They're not going to be supplied by the government. And so the law of supply and demand is going to be a result of this free enterprise system. In some countries, the government puts price regulations on certain goods. But if I am looking to buy a donut, then I'm going to go find a donut shop that is, in this country, it's going to be privately owned. And one of you may be making donuts. And as you make your donuts, I'm going to buy it from you. Therefore, you are going to make money. I have been satisfied because I have enjoyed a donut. You have been satisfied because you have been given money. And that's how it works. I'm not sure which is better, money or donuts. They don't give us that option in our paycheck. And you as an entrepreneur, as the donut shop operator, you are free to maximize your profits. So if I'm coming in every day and I'm buying a donut from your donut shop, and you realize, Mr. Jones is paying 50 cents every day for this donut, I wonder if he'd be willing to pay 75. And so the next day I walk in and it's 75 cents for that donut. Now, I walk in and I see the price, but whoa, hey, what's going on? Well, I gotta feed my family. Prices have gone up, whatever reason you want to choose. And I have a decision to make. I can either pay that money or I can walk out without a donut. Well, I'm probably not walking out without a donut, let's be honest. So I'm going to pay you the 75 cents. And as you see that you're still selling the same amount of donuts, you're making more profit. You have the ability to raise your prices if you want to. Or if you want to increase production so that you sell more donuts, you have the freedom to do that. And you can make as much money as you want. Because our economy is driven by spending. So our economy is driven by spending. This is part of the reason why when our economy was struggling back in 2008, that one of the first things that President Obama did to help fix the economy was he cut a check to every taxpayer. So I remember getting a check in the mail. I did nothing for it, but because I had paid my taxes, he gave everybody a stimulus check, and it was meant to stimulate the economy. So he told people, and he gave a message to the nation. He said, you're all going to receive the stimulus check. Go out and buy stuff. Buy that new TV, buy that new car that you've been thinking about. Go out and take a family vacation, support local businesses. Spend it. And that will boost the economy. Now, it wasn't a huge check, all right? So don't think that I'm going to retire off of that because it's not, it's not great. But it was a little bit of cash. And so the intent was to go out and spend it and stimulate the economy. You know what I did with it? Yeah, I stuck it in the bank. I did. So I did not follow through on that, but actually I think I had some bills I had to catch up on. So or a college loan or something I think that I had needed to pay off. So it's driven by spending. Now I'm just going to very quickly touch on a couple of these things here. In contrast to our capitalistic society, a state enterprise is government ownership of the property and wealth. So the state owns all aspects of the economy, and they are going to make the decisions. In some cases, you have mixed economies, which the United States is a little bit more toward a mixed economy because the government does control certain aspects of our economy. And in a true mixed economy, the government is the largest employer and customer. And they step in and they provide goods and services that we as individual entrepreneurs are not doing a good enough job providing. So you may not have really cared about what was going on in 2008, but this is part of the reason why the government stepped into the car industry and bailed out a number of the car companies and some of the banks in the United States, because the individual banks were not able to uphold their own goods and services, and they were going to go out of business, which was going to be bad for the overall economy. So the government stepped in and they took control for a while in order to make sure that they did not fall apart. Now, the government in a mixed economy helps to regulate business transactions. And sometimes this can be a really good thing. Like when you go to open up a can of Spam, which I know that you probably all do, you want to know that that can of Spam was processed in a clean facility. If you've ever read The Jungle, you know a little bit about what used to go on 100 years ago in our country. That's government regulation, and sometimes we like that. Other times we're not so crazy about it. It just depends on your vantage point. Now, as we pack up and go today, we will have a quiz on Tuesday over Chapter 1. I have put Chapter 2 Big Idea Worksheet on Canvas. You need to get started on that. That is going to be due on Thursday. I am going to give you some class time to work on that on Tuesday's class in a group. But I would recommend that you get a little bit of a start on that over the weekend. But we'll work on that a little bit on Tuesday, and that will be due on Thursday next week. So we've got quiz on Tuesday, Big Idea Worksheet on Thursday. Have a wonderful day. See you later.